Setting up a 401k is one of the first things you'll do when you start a new job. And you'll want to make sure that you opt into the 401k plan, assuming that your employer offers one. In fact, with a new law called the Secure 2.0 Act, you'll be opted into your 401k plan by default as of the year 2025. But if you're watching this video in 2023 or 2024, you need to make sure to opt in if that's not the default option for your company. And I know it's easy just to sort of push off the 401k documents when you're starting a new job. You're signing all kinds of forms, you're setting up your taxes with your W-4, you're getting safety work signed, confidentiality. There's all kinds of stuff that you have to sign when you start a new job, but you really don't want to let this fall through the cracks. A 401k plan is arguably the best way to build your wealth over the long haul. And if your company offers a 401k match, this is inarguably the highest priority investment that you'll ever make. You never say no to free money, especially tax-advantaged free money. In this video, we'll talk about how you can utilize your 401k plan to build massive wealth throughout your career. Before that, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Jeff Teeples, and here we aim to build your wealth with simple, time-tested solutions. Establishing your 401k. The HR department of your new employer should get you all set up with everything you need to open up your 401k on your first day of work. If they don't bring this up for whatever reason, be sure to let them know that you're interested right away. You want to get these investments compounding as soon as possible. They'll be able to walk you through filling out the form. It might be a physical form. Most times these days they're online. But the bottom line is you get it set up initially and you'll have a username and a login. And once you're at that point, we're ready to dive into the next step. Contribution and income limits. You are allowed to contribute $22,500 to your 401k in 2023. And this can be a combination between pre-tax and Roth 401k dollars. And then you're allowed to also contribute $7,500 for your catch-up contribution if you're 50 years old or older. And if you're 49 and you turn 50 in that calendar year, you can also add the $7,500 extra dollars. And these contribution limits typically increase a little each year, both the base amount and the catch-up amount. There are no income limits to your 401k contributions, so no matter how much money you make, you're able to do pre-tax traditional contributions or Roth 401k contributions. And unlike the Roth IRA, there's no income limits because the government, they're licking their chops for those people in the 37% marginal tax rate to have taxable income this calendar year. So they want you to do Roth 401k if they had it their way. Before we dive into the next section, if you're enjoying this content and you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell a friend about it. It really helps a lot and I appreciate you. Roth versus traditional contributions. Your first major hurdle once you get the 401k set up is to decide what type of contributions to make. And you have two options here. Option one, you can choose to make Roth 401k contributions. So if you choose that route, you're taxed in the current tax year on that money based on your marginal tax rate, but then you never get taxed in the future. So the investments that you make in your Roth 401k will grow tax-free, and when you take it out someday, you won't pay a penny of tax. And the other option is to make traditional contributions, which is before taxes. So any amount that you put into your traditional 401k will not be taxed in the current tax year. It pushes out the taxable event until you ultimately take the money out someday. And you know, it's either going to come out of your traditional 401k or by then you might have rolled it over to a traditional IRA. But it's the same concept. The taxable event is when you ultimately take the money out of the account to use it. The primary factor of what type of contributions you should make is, do you think your future tax bracket is going to be higher than your current tax bracket is now? Let's take a look at the 2023 tax tables to further explain this concept. On the left side of the screen, you're looking at the 2023 tax brackets for single filers. And on the right side of the screen, you're looking at the 2023 tax brackets for married filing jointly. So the concept is the same here. I'm just going to use the married filing jointly as I say these numbers. If you're in the 10 to 12% tax bracket, so that's $89,450 of taxable income or less per year, you will definitely want to choose the Roth 401k. That means you pay the taxes now this year, 10 to 12%, and you're never taxed on this money ever again. It grows in your Roth 401k or Roth IRA later, tax-free, and you take the money out tax-free. Now, if you look towards the bottom of the table, if you're in the 32 to 37% tax bracket, and this means your taxable income is $364,201 or higher per year, you'll definitely want to do the traditional 401k. So this pushes that taxable event out into the future until you take the money. You pay 0 federal taxes this year. There's always a great debate about the 22 to 24% tax bracket. This is where my wife and I have fallen in the last few years. And I personally am an advocate of the traditional 401k path because I believe when we ultimately control our tax brackets by taking the income out in the future, we will be in what is now the 12% bracket. You know, it could be 12, 15, maybe 18 by then. But I believe that we would pay more taxes today than we will in the future when we take it out. But this is debatable in these middle tax ranges. So there are a few caveats that are different about a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA and a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA. Now with a Roth, you are allowed to take out the amount that you've contributed to it. So you can't take out the growth without being 59.5 and having it in there for 5 years without penalties, but you are able to take out the actual contribution amounts that you put in without penalties. You shouldn't do that. You want to let this thing grow and compound tax free, but unlike the traditional 401k and IRA, you are allowed to dip into the Roth if you really need to. But if you're just saying, hey, I want the most money possible when I retire, I'm gonna wait till I'm 59.5, just tell me what to do to maximize my income ultimately. Really, it's a direct comparison to the tax rates. I used to always think, well, with the power of compound, you know, it can't just be that easy, right? There's gotta be some difference, it's growing tax-free and all this stuff. Really, it is the percentage now that you're deferring, like in the traditional contributions, versus the percentage when you take it out. It is to the dollar identical. So all you need to do is ask yourself, what's my marginal tax rate right now? Like, where am I at on those tax brackets we were looking at? And what do I think I'll be in the future? Whatever number's lower, that's the one you want to do to maximize your money. Besides all the little caveats, if you don't worry about taking it out early and you want to do it right and just push it to the future, it is strictly this percentage versus this percentage, and that's it. There's no other math if you want to get the most dollars in your pocket long term. Selecting your investments. 401k plans are generally fairly limited in the amount of investing options that you have. Usually there's anywhere from 10 to 40 options of mutual funds, index funds, or a lot of them have target date funds and things like that. If your 401k plan offers a low cost S&P 500 index fund, usually the expense ratio is 0.03% or so. That's 3 basis points, which means you'll pay $3 for every $10,000 that you have invested. I would roll with that option. You know, that's the market. That's the thing that everyone's trying to beat all the time. And 90+% of people do not outperform the market. So if you're going to be at this job for a while, you might as well just set it and forget it and let it grow. If the 401k plan does not offer a low cost S&P 500 index, I'd probably recommend going with a target date fund next. These don't quite do as well as a low-cost S&P 500 index over the years, but it's hard to mess them up. So if you're not comfortable hand-picking all of your mutual funds, it's not a bad option. And if you do want to hand-pick some mutual funds or have some in the target date fund and some in the mutual funds, there's nothing wrong with that. I would just make sure that you check out the expense ratios and try to get in broad indexes or broad mutual funds that have lower expense ratios and are more passively managed, if at all possible, because those will do better over many years. And a lot of companies have tools to help you with your 401k. You might be able to say your age, how many years you have left, and your risk tolerance, and it'll recommend a certain portfolio, or it'll at least give you some ideas, or you'll have someone at the company to help you. So if you're uncomfortable and you don't want to just roll with a target fund, or there's no low-cost S&P 500 index, get with someone in the company that can help you out and do some research before setting it up. I know this isn't the most comfortable thing or exciting thing for people that just aren't into finances and don't like this stuff, but it really is a one-time setup to get you building some serious wealth over time. So you'll want to take the time to get this thing set up, and then your paycheck will just automatically feed it and you don't have to do anything after that point. Add more and let it grow. It's very important to fund your 401k as much as you can over the years. I remember when I was new, someone recommended maxing it out every year, hitting the limit. I was like, hey man, I'm brand new here, I'm making 50K a year. There is no way I'm even sniffing the limit, and I'll never get there. But what I was able to do was put in my 8%, and I got the full company match. That's step one. You never want to leave that on the table. And then as I got raises over the years, and my salary increased, or I'd get some bonuses here and there, instead of lifestyling up, I would try my best to increase the amount that I put into my 401k. And over time, as I got salary increases and bonuses, I did my best to not lifestyle up too much. And my wife and I, the last few years, have both been able to max our 401k contributions. So year by year, you'll get there. Just get used to feeding that raise into your 401k as opposed to just spending extra money on things you don't really need. And a lot of companies have plans where you can borrow against your 401k, whether it's buying a house, buying a car, just a general purpose loan. You'll be able to borrow half the amount and pay it back with some interest, or there's lots of different setups for this. Try your best not to do that. Try to find other ways to save up for these things that you need in life, because your 401k, when you're growing 10, 11% over many years, the compound effect is insane, and you'll really want to not touch it and just let it grow. In fact, I can't go through a whole video without diving into a spreadsheet. Let's take a look at a couple scenarios of just how much this baby can grow. Let's knock out a couple scenarios here. Let's just say in the first scenario, you have a low-cost S&P 500 index fund available. In the last 50 years, it's gone up 11% per year on its total return. Let's just use 11%. Now, let's say that you're going to contribute $500 a month to your 401k plan. So at $500 a month contributed, no initial investment, and an 11% growth, you'll see that 10 years in, you have 108,000. 20 years in, you're up to 432. When do we hit our cool million? Over $1 million 28 years in. Now remember, most companies offer a match. Let's say that you make $75,000 a year, and your company matches the first 4%, that's very common. That would be $250 a month just from your company alone. If you were able to put in $750 a month, that'd get your total monthly contribution to $1,000. At that 11% per month, you could see after 10 years, you're at $216,000. When you scroll 20 years, you're at $865,000. And 30 years on the job, you'd be at $2.8 million. And that's at $1,000 a month, which is $750 a month out of your paycheck and $250 with your company. And that's assuming a $75,000 salary. Now remember, if you're making pre-tax contributions, you're not actually paying that much out of your net paycheck. So for example, if you put in $1,000 a month, it's really only going to cost you what would have been about $750 to $800 a month out of your paycheck, because it's pre-tax and it doesn't add to your taxable income. Now, if you could get to where you could do $1,500 a month between you and your company, then all of a sudden you're looking at $1 million 18 years in, and it's staggering. When you're 30 years in, you'd be at $4.2 million. That's at the 11% that the S&P has steadily grown at in the last 50 years. Let's say you get to the point where you can contribute the max, which this year is $22,500. So that would be $1,875 a month. And your company at that salary would be putting at least $300, you'd think, probably way more. So let's just make it $2,175. This is a fairly realistic situation. If you were maxing yours and getting a company match. So with $0 to start, on year 0, you have 0 here. As you go through the years at 11%, 30 years into your career, you would have $6 million set aside for retirement. And even just after 10 years, you have $500,000, and you hit that $1 million mark just after year 16. All right, that about does it for this video. Thanks for sticking with me till the bitter end. You are one of the real ones. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you for next week's video. Peace.